On this edition of Mic'd Up Sports, she is a well-traveled figure in basketball, and her journey offers an encouraging lesson about striving for your goals. It's a lesson Olivia Antilla is teaching as a coach, and you'll hear all about it on Mic'd Up Sports. Hello everyone, I'm Mike Peden and this is Mic'd Up Sports, the show that goes in depth with the people who build our sports community. Joining me today is Olivia Antilla, who is the head assistant basketball coach at Orono. You may remember her from her time at Benilde-St. Margaret's or Osseo High School. And she had a stellar 2 seasons at Florida A&M, a member of the Rattlers. And Olivia, I guess being down in Tallahassee, the snow wasn't enough to keep you away. You came back to help guide the next generation of Minnesota athletes, and thanks for coming by.
Yes, that's always been what I've wanted to do, is to get back into coaching. I just feel like there is a lot of non-well coached girls in Minnesota, and it's not even just in Minnesota, I think it's across the world. We're missing a lot of good coaches, especially in the women form, in order to help these young athletes become women, because to me it's been bigger than basketball, and with a few of coaches that I've had, it's not just about basketball, and so that's what I've wanted to bring to these young athletes in my own state.
And we will talk about your coaching escapades as you begin that coaching career. Started at Osseo, where you graduated, now at Orono, but before all of that, you were once a player. Do you remember when you got that first itch to play basketball, the first moment that attracted you to the sport?
I always say that I felt it in the womb. Like, I was born to be a part of this game and born to play it in some aspect. I vividly remember starting in house league, and I was the only girl playing with all boys when I was in the Champlain Park, the CPAA association. And then
is that a traveling league?
It was a house league that was for before traveling. So I've been playing since the first grade. Then I moved to traveling, and it became my thing. I became passionate with it, dedicated to my craft, and just trying to be the best that I could be.
What was it like at such a young age to be the only girl on a boys' house team?
For me, it was always fun, and that's where I got the love to play against men and boys, was because they played so physical, and that's where I learned to play that physical. It was challenging because a lot of times the boys would not want to pass me the ball because I'm the girl or anything like that, and I still run into that today when I'm over playing basketball. It's just because of the gender that they think you can't keep up. And so that's where I learned my basis for never giving up, being passionate, and just playing with grit, because that's how you prove yourself.
Clearly, the men that you've played with have not seen the Minnesota Lynx.
No, not at all.
Otherwise, they'd be passing you the ball. I know
Right.
I would, but I have no athletic skills, so I would just I move the ball up and defer to you and just let you do the dirty work. So you said you still play the game. So do you play in rec leagues, or how do you stay involved in the sport?
Last year I played in a few women's leagues over at the Jewish Community Center in St. Louis Park, but besides that, I'm just playing on outdoor courts, usually over in South Minneapolis on Lindale, or I'm just going to LA's Lifetimes just to get some runs in. I'm very particular on, if I can't show a player a move, how can I expect them to adequately get it down if I can't effectively show them how to do it? So, and I still have a love for the game and playing, I just can't do it as frequently as my young athletes do.
Well, you know, you've got a job and some other priorities, and if you were a pro player, maybe a different story. But
Right.
You were a stellar player.
Thank you.
And I'm not saying that just because you're here. I mean, you do have the accolades. You even have the resume. So if anyone doubts your credentials, you've got that ready for them. So you started playing in the house league. Then you moved up to traveling. How did your love for the sport grow over that time?
Basketball's been a part of my family. My mom was passionate about it. My grandfather, who went to school in Osseo and still holds records up there, he was passionate about it, and it was in the family. And so I was constantly always asking my mom, can we go sit in the gym? You don't play till this time, I just want to watch. Constantly having basketball on the TV, and it just became something that I loved to watch and not only be a fan of, but be a student of the game. And so that's what also drove me to continue it, was because I just wanted to know more. I wanted to learn more, watch people who were better than me or that I could learn from. It was constant just wanting to gain knowledge about the game.
You said your grandfather still holds records at Osseo, and so your mother and father, what was their experience with basketball?
Yeah, so my dad played basketball. My mom was a 3-sport athlete until she blew her knee out playing softball. So her sporting career ended early due to knee surgery. But even everyone that was placed around me was very basketball oriented. The people who trained me, Reggie Perkins, he kept that motivation and kept challenging me to be better. David DeWitt. So a lot of the coaches and the trainers I had kept that fire burning within me because they believed in me and I believed in myself.
And willpower, self-esteem, all of that can go a long way. Who were your role models in the sport of basketball? They could be family, could be players you watched growing up. Who did you want to be when you're this young, impressionable house and traveling member? Who are your idols in basketball?
I will forever and always be a Kobe Bryant fan. Not saying I tried to mimic my game like him.
You mean you didn't try that one-footed step-back jumper?
No.
I thought you had moves, Olivia.
But I did love the passion that he played with, and that's what I strived for, because he played with such emotion and fire, and I was like, that's amazing. You can tell how much he loved the game because of how much passion he displayed. I just always tried to be the best version of me, and in workouts I honestly just always tried to go the hardest. If I wasn't drenched, dripping sweat by the end, I would pick up another session just because I was failing myself. I was raised to just challenge myself, not by comparing myself to others, but by just doing the best that I could possibly do.
And a lot of athletes from your generation have pointed to Kobe Bryant. In some ways, I liken him to Michael Jordan's influence on the game. I got to see him in the tail end of the Bulls dynasty. You're not going to get an answer out of which one's better because, well, there's too many variables with that, but yeah, Kobe Bryant's a solid choice.
Yeah, and with them...
and I will say, gave him props when he got 60 in his last game.
With them, I think it's more so of like, I saw Kobe in real life, watched him play, whereas when Jordan, I was just a baby. So it's like, I know how great he is, but for me, Kobe was the it.
Right.
Yeah.
Much like Jordan was for me. And of course I was a Kevin Garnett fan too, and I watched Space Jam 50 times.
Yeah.
So Jordan will always be my guy, but I'm not going to sit here and debate between him and LeBron, because in pro basketball, there's always going to be someone new coming in.
Right, and different eras, different styles of basketball played and allowed. I truly believe in the 90s, they were allowed to play as physical as they wanted to, to the core, the punches.
You had the bad boys, Detroit
you had the
Pistons,
bad boys and all of that.
And Jordan didn't take any flack either.
At all.
He went at folks.
And I think now it's more of a flopping game of who can get the most calls. And I see a lot of actors that they should maybe switch to an acting career because of how well they sell it. So
not to mention more of a finesse game too,
yep,
with
extremely.
pace and space. That's the common term that the Warriors exemplified in their run. And there's a value to it, but it's just another illustration of how the game changes and how, you have to adapt. And I imagine you had to do the same thing, even starting as a first grader on the house team and as you made your way up.
Yep.
And if you don't mind, how did your game evolve as you were making your way through the youth levels?
I think it was always just of what that team needed from me. So every person has a role on the team, whether it be scoring from the inside, the outside, overall, being a defender, like everyone has a role. And so for me, it was just learning early what my strengths were and what I needed to do for the team to win. And for different teams, I needed to score from different areas of the floor. For instance, at Benilde, when it was my freshman year, we had a very tall starting lineup. So being able to flex between the 2 through 5 so that with our rotations, it would just work. And then at Osseo, I just played primarily the 4 to 5 because we were a lot smaller at Osseo. And so it's just, I think it's buying into what your role is on the team and what the team needs from you. And that's where you'll see the most personal success, but also the most team success when everyone just buys in.
And that's a good segue because you started your varsity career at Benilde-St. Margaret's as an 8th grader.
Yep.
I remember that vaguely because I think you played South and here was this Benilde team and it was in the height of Taylor Hill's run.
Yep.
What led you to Benilde and how excited and nervous were you to get the call up to varsity as an 8th grader?
So what initially brought me to Benilde was because my mom wanted me to be a part of a college prep school, which Benilde is a very good education school. And then for me, it just fit because they didn't have to wear uniforms.
That was your criteria?
Yes, that was.
Because, like De La Salle and Cretin-Durham Hall, they wear uniforms.
Almost everyone else wears uniforms besides Benilde. And so going there, initially I was nervous because the school does go 6 through 12, and a lot of that middle school age, they've been friends with each other. So going there with the school aspect, I was nervous, but then in between those lines, I never had nerves. I knew what my skill did and how well it could speak for itself. And so when I called up, I just felt ready. I wanted the opportunity, and so I took full advantage of it because I didn't want to lose those 6-man minutes coming off the bench.
And what would you make of that first season? As you said, you were the 6th man or 6th woman, I guess.
Yes.
That's more fitting, but that's not easy. I mean, we see a lot of 7th, 8th graders that come in, but you're going in there against a lot of older athletes. And Benilde, I forget what conference they were in at the time, that changes, but they were a solid 3A team. So you weren't playing against low-level competition. You would go up against some of the titans in prep basketball.
Yeah, so I'm the type of player, I never back down from a challenge. I don't care who you are, where you're from, your height, your weight, your size. I'm going to give you all the fight that I have. And I wanted to do my part in order to win because I've always hated losing more than I loved winning. And so whatever I possibly could do to help the team, I wanted to do that. But I've never been the type of player to back down to anyone, no matter age, gender, race, weight, anything like that. I will always bring the fight.
And you were speaking of some of the moments at Benilde-St. Margaret's. You got perhaps one of your highlights of a prep career. Started as an 8th grader. 2 years later, you won the state championship, knocking off Hill Murray in 2010. And if I recall, that team had Bethany Doolittle and Tessa Sitchie, 2 D1 prospects. So as you're making your way through 8th, 9th, 10th grade, what would you say helped lead you up to that moment? And what do you remember from winning a state title as a sophomore?
Yeah, I think my role changed vastly from 8th to 9th grade. I went from coming off the bench to starting and scoring a lot more points. And it was nice that from our team, from my 9th grade to 10th grade year, it remained the same. And I think that was why we had so much success, because we were just one. We had that gel, that we've been playing with each other. We're familiar. We know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we just played well with each other. And so I think that's every girl's goal. Every player's goal wants to win a state championship. So it's always just keeping that in the back of your mind, that this is what we're fighting for. This is the common goal. And then in 10th grade, I remember that game because every time at the state tournament they play that comeback that we had, and then I clinched the 2 free throws. And that was just, it's such a memorable moment. And it's funny because I tell my girls, I'm like, that's a moment you want to have. Like, people won't remember unless it's a extremely high scoring game. They won't remember how many points you scored, the rebounds, the assists. They're going to remember that your team won. And having that memory, still having that piece of net in my house, like, it's a good memory to have, and a good memory that helps me strive for coaching my girls.
I forgot that you had to come from behind to win that game. So what were the emotions, the mood, and then just the narrative? Because as you said, you sank a couple of free throws to clinch it, but when you're trailing and the clock is winding down, how did you respond in that situation?
I think it's just the motivation of you can't give up. Like, teams came back from way more with less time, and so still seeing it that this is reachable. We are good enough to win this game, and then just using our defense to turn to offense and knowing who would take those shots at the end. And so it was just the motivation of, we're not going to give up that easy. No matter how much time is left, we're not going to just roll over and die. And then when it happened, it was just an amazing feeling of, we did it, we came back, like, this is amazing. We actually won a state championship.
How nervous were you when you went to the line for those 2 free throws?
I wasn't. And what was funny is the coach actually called a timeout before Bob Lyons.
Bob Lyons.
Before I shot the 2 free throws. And everyone was like, why is he icing her? And I vividly remember he said, I wasn't worried because I knew she was going to make them. So stepping up to the free throw line, I wasn't nervous. I knew I was going to make them. And so I had that confidence that this was going to be sealed.
Well, you know how it goes. You call a timeout, and it's one of those things, you ice the shooter unless it doesn't happen. So, and I imagine maybe you want to draw something up too in case something goes wrong, in case you miss and you have to scramble. So do you remember the euphoria? You touched on this, but of course there's the pile up at Target Center when you won, but do you remember the euphoria that followed, and did people come to you asking for autographs after that state title win?
A lot of pictures. It was nice to go back to school and everyone just be congratulating you, parents and teachers congratulating, your phone blowing up on social media and with texts of, I'm so proud of you, congratulations, like having that moment of being like, it paid off, like this is what we wanted to do and we did it. So it was a great moment to feel accomplished of everything we had been working for.
Now, I know you came in after Concussion Alexander, who, great athlete, wonderful career, and great story of perseverance too, to do what she did in Iowa. I don't know if the two of you ever crossed paths, but did you get any glimpses of that history when you were at Benilde-St. Margaret's?
Everyone knew who she was. She is an amazing athlete. So it was the year before I came.
Right, she graduated in 07, you came in that next season.
Yep, and so it was just that her skill never left. Like, it was constantly being reminded, and this is what she did, and that is kind of what, motivated the younger groups, is just like, oh, that's what we want to strive to reach those goals as well.
And After you won state, were people saying or reminding others about you?
I wouldn't be able to say. I was in high school. I was never a player who liked to talk about themselves or.
Really?
Yeah.
You didn't toot your own horn?
No.
I tease.
I felt so uncomfortable in high school talking, even when classmates would be like, how much do you have? How many did you have last night? I would feel uncomfortable answering the question because I didn't want to come off like I was bragging or anything like that. And so, I mean, I kept doing what I knew I was supposed to be doing and kept just striving to be better, working every day.
And on a related note, how big a moment was that state championship for your journey, your growth, your development as a player?
Yeah, I think it motivated me even more because after getting a taste of state, like you want to go again. And I knew I had to better myself on many different skill levels in order for that to happen. And so it was just, once you get it once, you want to keep going. Like you don't want to just get it and then never experience it again. And so I just felt like I had hit one of my goals, but going to state once wasn't good enough for me.
No, you did go back. And just for the folks who may not remember that team, who are some other players? Do you remember the other members of that 2010 team?
Yep.
That
so
prep fans might remember?
Josie Dillon.
Josie, yes.
Yep.
She went to North Dakota?
Yep. I think she played for a couple years.
Yes,
and then
yes.
Khadijah Shumpert.
Shumpert.
Yep. Itisha Alexander.
Was she related to Concussion or?
Yep, she was.
Okay,
yep.
I do remember that now.
Yep. And then Lindsay Kaminsky, Sarah Kopp, Sydney Pilarski, Laura Kosh. I'm so good with names. But yeah, that was like our primary group of who did it.
And I take it, you still connect with them here and there when you get a chance?
I'm not a very friendly person. I am very introverted.
Okay.
Yep. I'm very just introverted. And when I left to Florida, I took that as kind of like a rebirth because it was my junior year transferring there. And so I think as people become adults, they change a lot. And
of course, I still change.
Yep.
I'm 32 years old, and I'm not the same guy I was when I started covering prep sports over a decade ago.
And so a few of my Osseo teammates, I still talk to them daily. Some of my best friends. And so I think it was just finding my people of who was the right friendship,
So we're not really helping you out here if you're an introvert and you're doing this talk show in front of all these people that will watch.
Right.
No, and it's not easy, and I can understand that, having those desires. But as you said, you wanted to go back to state. Mm-hmm. You did.
Yep.
In 2011. What do you recall from that season, and then just how strange or how shocking was it for you to end your season with the head injury you suffered in the third place game?
Yeah, I actually remember we beat Orono in order to go to state that year. And then going there, we won the first game, and then we ended up, I believe, playing De La Salle the next round, and we lost to them. And so that was the first thing I was upset about, was you get so close and then nothing's wrong with third place, but it's not playing in a championship game.
And like you said, you don't like to lose.
Right, at all. And then to go out with a concussion and a neck sprain was just not the way I anticipated ending my junior year. And it was really hard, but I just wanted to recover so I could get back.
What do you remember from that incident?
Yeah, so I remember the game was going and I went up for a layup and a girl undercut me. And then after that, it's still no memory off of that. I just know I was carried out in a stretcher and my family was there with me.
Probably a scary moment, I imagine.
Yes, especially for my mom. Yes.
I can understand that, especially mom and dad and everyone else who was cheering for you. And so what was the recovery process like? You told me you had to get checked out, make sure you were okay, but how long did you have to stay? And then how long was the recovery process? What did that entail for you?
Yeah, a few days in the emergency room due to MRIs and some x-rays to make sure my spine was all good before they discharged me, and then I was in a neck brace, and a concussion can take 6+ weeks to recover from. It's something that you're constantly having to deal with because you get headaches from it that develop to migraines, eyesight. So it was just listening to my body and only going as hard as I could until I was fully recovered.
And how did that event maybe shape your perspective? Not saying you were arrogant, you certainly weren't, you didn't sound that way, but to go through that and to have to endure the recovery time, being out for a few weeks, how did that influence your perspective on the game and your role in it?
Right. And then that's when the moment when I understood where everyone's like, you have to play like it's your last game, because there have been situations where people have never been able to come back from concussions or have gotten injuries that they can't come back from. And so for me, it was just appreciating every day that I got to be a part of this game and respecting it and giving it everything I had, every chance I could.
And as you were saying, your mother's athletic career came to a premature end due to injury. Were you scared at all when you had that concussion? Like, were you scared that you might not be able to play the way you used to?
No, I know how I was and how I still am. I was so determined to keep going and to reach more goals that I had that was never even a thought in my mind.
Determination is one of your strong suits. I'm picking that up in this conversation. So on top of that, your junior season ends with a nasty injury, and thankfully you've recovered and are able to, continue in the sport that you love. But on top of that, in between your junior and senior year, you transferred to Osseo. That doesn't happen often for high school athletes from their junior to senior season. What led you to make the change to Osseo?
It was a family change. Due to a sick relative, we just wanted to be closer to that relative, and then we found a house in the Osseo school district, and so I ended up going there for my senior year.
How hard was it to leave Benilde-St. Margaret's and the legacy you helped build, including that state title?
It was actually kind of easy because I had friends at Osseo that I've known since I was little growing up. And so I was kind of more excited for it than sad, and I was ready for just the new adventure of my senior year.
And what was that senior year like? You were able to get back in there and play. I imagine that was exciting for you. I mean, you already had that as a goal to get back out there and remind everyone what you could do, but when you got back out for the first time since that injury, what was the mood like for you?
Yeah, I wanted to get back to state.
And you did.
Yes, because I had already hit my 1,000th point within the first few games of the junior year. So I had reached that goal. I wanted to go to state. Once I was there, I wanted to go to state with a 4A school, and Osseo hadn't been since it was either 2000 or 2001.
They won in 2000, and it hadn't been there for a while.
And so I was just like, we need to go back. And so we had a lot of good players that year: Michaela Bailey, Janae Morton, Phyllis Webb.
And I think Bailey went to Minnesota.
Yep. And
Morton went to Eastern Michigan.
They both went to Eastern Michigan. Yep.
Yep. And then Morton, I think, finished at Nebraska, if I recall.
I believe in either her senior or her grad year, she finished there. Yep.
You're taking me back with all these names.
Yeah.
You're jogging my memory. So I was Bailey, Webb, Morton, and who else was on that team?
Annalise Okonkwo, who was known for her track abilities, and her sister Njcaa was actually on the state winning team the last time they won.
And Phyllis was quite the track athlete herself. I think she beat Taylor Anderson, who beat you in basketball their last year together at state track. It was a neck and neck run.
Yeah, and Phyllis was
quite the fun rivalry.
Extreme athlete, yes. And so that was our core group. We had a lot of seniors. I believe we had 7 that year. So yeah, it was different because at Benilde I kind of had free range to kind of be on the wing, shoot, do all I floated between the 2 and the 5. Whereas at Osseo, I was the tallest person on the team, and I was only 5'10" at the time, and so we were a lot smaller, and so I primarily was just the 4 and the 5 and floated between those positions. But it was fun. We high scoring games, we competed, and the team just brought me in and we gelled, and that's how we ended up going to state.
Finished second to Hopkins, if I recall. That was in the middle of their three-peat run.
Yep.
What were some other maybe differences between Benilde and Osseo, and what did you enjoy about getting the chance to go to state for two different teams?
Yeah, so I think the difference was primarily our styles of play were different, and then just the school. Osseo's a lot bigger, like
a little bit.
Yeah, a lot larger, and then
their gym's a lot larger, as you imagine.
Yep.
As you saw, like you went from Benilde to this gym that can pack a few thousand people.
Yep, it's huge, and then also being a part of a huge rivalry between Osseo and Maple Grove, and just being a part of that, and then going to state with two different schools. I mean, for me, it was I was proud of myself for being able to do that, and also being able to do it at 4A and 3A was good for me. I was proud of myself for being able to accomplish that, and so it was fun to even be able to go to state 3 times, and then with 2 different teams, it was just even better.
Well, and you should be proud. It's not easy to get to state in single elimination brackets, so
Right.
to do it 3 years in a row with 2 different teams, pat yourself on the back for that. That's pretty nice. What do you recall from that championship game? Again, it was in the middle of the Hopkins three-peat, and I know Hopkins won that game handily. How did you handle that championship round?
Yeah, I mean, I went in it not caring who they were, to be honest. I think their name scares a lot of people because of what they've done. Again, going back to what I said, I don't back down. And I remember I had a huge first half against them, and it was neck and neck, and then we came out and I didn't start the second half, and it escalated from there. And that Hopkins was a team, once you were down by so much, you were never going to come back. And so I just wanted to keep fighting because I didn't want to just hand it to them, like, you're going to make sure you beat us by this much. And so just following through the whole game and knowing that we got there. And so finishing out for me I thought was a high note for personally myself. It was a good way to go out. Winning would have been better, but
Of course, but you understand when it comes to these championships, there's only one team that's going to leave happy. Everyone else will have that moment where they wish things were different, but you don't seem to have too many regrets, if any, about your time in high school.
No, I really feel like when I look back, I gave it all I could. And that's what I tell my athletes is don't leave anything, because you never want to look back and be like, oh, I could have gave more. And I felt like I accomplished all the goals I had set for myself. And I went to state 3 times, and the majority of players can't even say they went to state once. And so for me to sit here and say I have regrets when I gave the game in high school everything I had, I don't have any.
What did you enjoy most about the high school experience?
Just playing. Be able to play multiple times a week and just compete. It was fun. And so, but I was ready to move on to college by the time it was my senior year.
And when you started college, you moved on to South Dakota School of Mines, a Division II school. And this actually is a fascinating story because not many folks go from D2 to Juco and then to D1. I've seen some D1 athletes go to D2. So how many offers did you have coming out of high school, and what led you to start your college career at South Dakota School of Mines?
Yeah, I hated the recruiting process. Like, I legit hated it, and that's why I help kids so much. Like, it's a very stressful time to be having conversations with different coaches at different levels, telling you all this information, it can become very stressful. And that's why you see a lot of players just rush into a decision. And that's why transfers are so extremely common. And even they go to a level, and how you're saying the D1 to D2, they're like, oh, this isn't for me.
And even D1 to D1.
Yep. And I feel like a lot of players just make decisions to not prolong the process. And that's what it was for me when I went and visited. It felt right in the moment, and I was just like, oh, okay, like, let's do it. And then it turned out not to be the right situation. And for a lot of athletes, I feel like it's not because they don't know the questions to ask coaches. You have to also scout the school. Do they play the type of basketball you like? Are there people there who are a year above you that play the same position? So the transition for some can be very stressful, especially when it's not easy to navigate. So I had chosen there because it was still kind of remotely close to school, to home. Whoa, definitely close to home. And then I went there and I just played. So
we knew what you meant.
Yeah.
With that. What you touched on this, but what do you think is the issue with the recruiting process? Because in your case, were there any D1 schools that reached out to you?
Mm-hmm, there was.
And guess what was it about that process in high school that you think creates the conflict or the drama that plays out sometimes at the college level now?
It's a business. And that's what I explained to my AAU girls, my high school girls, is these coaches, this is their livelihood. This is how they feed their families. Their name, especially as the recruiting coordinator, your name's on the line. And so, not saying that all, but I've experienced some, and I've had players who have told me situations they've been in. There are some false information that has been given to players in order to entice them to want to come to the school. And I think that's why players end up leaving, because no coach is ever going to sit there and tell you all their flaws. They're going to tell you all the best things about their program and their school and themselves. And so when you get into a situation where you may not be used to a coach yelling or being a very passionate coach, that may not be the fit for you. Or if you're with a coach who is more laid back and you need someone to push you more, it may not be the fit. Or realizing that this level of basketball and commitment is not for you. And so I think a lot for it is trial and error. Is you don't know if a coach is for you until you're playing for them. You don't know if this level of play is for you until you're playing at that level. And so, and now with portals being open, it's a lot easier to transfer. And so that's why I think I'm all for transferring, because I never want someone to be unhappy in the situation that they're in. And so it's like, if this situation doesn't make you happy, then you should find a school and a program that does.
And I like that you brought up what sounds like a lack of transparency. Of course, when you're out recruiting, you're marketing, you're giving your best pitch.
Yep.
But as you said, you don't understand the nuances, so you either have to ask around or research it yourself. And the transfer discussion, it's been prevalent in the college game now. Some folks say, the kids just aren't tough like they used to be, but as you pointed out, it's a business, and this sport is, and there's no reason the athletes shouldn't consider their own well-being or how they fit into a program. There are cases where some stick it out and it works out, but I can understand in your case where it sounded like you entered a situation that you weren't expecting at South Dakota School of Mines, and you decided, let's try something else.
Yeah, so with South Dakota School of Mines, it wasn't what I expected, and it was for a lot of reasons. I was playing, I was scoring, I was contributing to the team, so it wasn't that. It just wasn't the right fit for me, and I didn't find it necessary to stay any longer when I had a relationship with Dave DeWitt at Njcaa Ramsey, because he was my previous AAU coach, and we had talked, and it seemed right for me to go back and play for him for my sophomore year of college.
What was that experience like going to a D3 Juco? You led the nation in scoring, so I think it was clear that you could handle yourself out there. And how did, family, friends, how did they respond to your choice of spending a year in Juco to kind of get around the transfer rule, basically?
Right. So the only hard part was I only played a semester, and so I actually had to sit out my second half of my freshman semester, which that was the hardest part, to work out and practice and not sit on the bench and not be able to see the floor. That was one of the hardest things that I had gone through. And then my family was extremely supportive. I had been very vocal of how I was feeling about the school that I was at, and my mom always just supported me in whatever decision I wanted to make. And so going D3 Juco, I feel like it was a good experience for me, and I love Coach DeWitt, and I love how much passion he coaches with, and some people they don't like what he does, but I feel like he pulled out the best in me, and being able to play for him for a whole year instead of just a small couple months because of AAU, I feel like he changed my game and made me a better player. And so I felt like we were still playing top competition, and Njcaa Ramsey is one of the most winningest Juco programs, whether it's D1, D2, D3, and they've gone to nationals almost every single year that he's been the coach there, and so he gets players to play on that stage, and it was amazing.
What did it mean for you to lead the nation, the Njcaa, in scoring?
Honestly, I didn't even realize I was doing it until the very end. I
forgot. You don't like it when we bring up numbers.
Because on my team we had a lot of people who could score. It happened that I scored a lot, and it was cool to see that I did that, and that's an awesome thing that I can keep in my memory, is that I did lead the nation in scoring my year of playing.
How do you think your 1 year at Njcaa Ramsey, it's a D3 Juco, but it played a part in you moving up to Division I? I mean, you're the first person I've heard of that started at a D2 or smaller and then finished at a D1 school, and you weren't just a bench warmer. I mean, you were a solid contributor at Florida A&M. So how did that year with Njcaa Ramsey prepare you for those 2 years at Florida A&M?
Yeah, I feel like I had a year to perfect my skill, to really dive in to the gym. And again, like I said, I think Coach DeWitt brought out the best parts of me because we were both on the same page of what the common goal was. I'm an advocate for Juco. And a lot of people turn their nose up to it, but little do they know, college coaches love Juco players because you have 1 or 2 years of experience. You get to gain strength, and you get to adapt to college in an easier way instead of diving in at a 4-year institution or university. And so I feel like it prepared me a lot in the basketball realm of just being able to get in really good shape, to become more confident in my different ways of scoring. And so I found it to be extremely beneficial. And that's why I urge young athletes to not rush into a decision and not just choose a school because of the name of the school, but to choose it because they really want to go there and to not settle. Because Juco is a great alternative route, especially because let's say you're going Division III, you can go junior college for 2 years and save a boatload of money, and then still most likely go back to that Division III school and finish out.
Or in your case, you get spotted by a coach. So how did you end up from a D3 Juco to a Division I school? Because I imagine there was kind of a re-recruitment process, knowing that you're going to go back that junior year. And how excited were you to know that you were going to get the chance to play Division I basketball?
So I saw film and I went on a visit, and I knew that that was the place for me. It felt right. The role that they wanted me to play was a role that I was excited for, and so I was just ready to dive in and just play again. I was always eager to play, and so I was excited to be able to play at a higher level.
What did you enjoy most about your time at FAMU?
I think going to a HBCU, which is a historically black college or university, was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me. It helped me really dive in and be surrounded by people who looked like me, and it felt amazing, especially for a majority of my years going to a school that was not extremely diverse at Benilde. Osseo is extremely diverse, but
Benilde, I can see that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've covered basketball on and off, and there is some diversity there, but it sounds like the rest of the school,
it lacks. Yeah, a
Right.
lot of the diversity is within the sports.
and just to be clear, you're not knocking the school.
No, not knocking the school
Just so
at all.
in case anyone has any
No.
ideas, no. But what did that, as you said, how invigorating was that for you to go to an HBCU and just see a lot of, young, excited, and ambitious African-American students and athletes?
And it was just what you said, young and ambitious, and it was an exciting opportunity for me. I am an advocate for HBCUs if students have questions about it at all. It was just a time for me to really dive into who I was, and that's for a lot of students in college, but I just felt like I grew a lot and more than I would have at a PWI, which is a predominantly white institution. And it was a good feeling all the time, and they had different groups that were relatable to me, and just to have people surrounding me who understood what I was going through, it was a very enlightening and powerful situation.
You bring up something interesting for me because I went to the University of Minnesota, but I went to high school at Harding. Again, I was not athletic enough. You never would have heard of me on the athletic front. I was more the media type. But Harding, predominantly Southeast Asian student body. And so I went to St. Paul's, so I was always used to that notion that not everyone was going to look like me, and that's okay. I go to the U of M my freshman year, and I'm walking around, and it hit me like, there's a lot of people who look like me.
Yeah.
And you said going to FAMU for 2 years helped you grow. How do you think that helped you connect with your African American identity?
That I'm biracial, so my mom is white and my dad is black, and so I just felt like it was 2 years of me just being able to find out more and be around people who gave me knowledge, gave me information, and even enlightened me on stuff that's not taught in the school. And so again, it was a powerful situation for 2 years, and I came out, I feel as though, a stronger individual, knowing who I am and being confident in my skin and what I bring to the table.
And how comfortable were you before then? It sounded like you were getting along fine. So what was that before and after process like?
Yeah, before I was always just fine. I feel like just moving along, but after it was like I really stood in my shoes and I stood tall, and I was like, this is who I am, and I won't back down for anyone in any type of situation.
So you stood tall, and not just because you're 6 feet.
Exactly, not just because of that.
But you stood tall as well on the basketball court. You led the team in scoring for 2 seasons. So what was that experience like coming in from a D3 Juco and then adapting as quickly as you did to put up a lot of points for the Rattlers?
Yeah, so when I'm in the game, I just want to do what is best for the team. And when my role was established, it was that I needed to score. And so I took that role on of scoring the ball. I found ways possible. And for me, it was just, it wasn't good enough. And that's why I kept working, kept being in the gym, shooting on the machine, because it wasn't good enough what I was doing. And so just always striving for something more is what kept me like going to get better than what I was.
And what position did you play for the Rattlers?
Yeah, so I really just kind of floated around. I primarily...
You went back to the 2 through 5 at
yeah,
Benilde?
pretty much just whatever our lineup was, fitting that. My first year, we had a lot more taller players, and then going into my senior year, we kind of shrunk a little bit due to injuries. And so it was just being adaptable in whatever situation, but I had the green light. And so me bringing up the ball wasn't a problem. Me initiating the offense wasn't a problem. Going inside, playing that in-out game. I've always been deemed as a tweener, which is
In-betweener?
In between.
So kind of the stretch 4 before we started using that term?
Yep, definitely. A stretch 4 before that term was really being used. And so it was nice to be in a program where I was allowed to play my style of game within their style.
Playing in college, you're amongst a lot of taller athletes, and at Benilde and Osseo, you were often one of the taller, if not tallest figures on the floor. How did that change your perspective, if anything?
It was more so just utilizing my skills because I could shoot the ball, and once I got to FAMU, I was shooting it from way farther out than the actual three-point line. It was just utilizing myself for mismatches, and so I became a person that you couldn't put a smaller guard on me because I would just go inside, and if you tried to put a 5 on me, I would just pull them out and we would run a different offense. And so it was just by gaining knowledge, learning, okay, this is my defender. Now, how do I offset this? Like, how do I get them out of their element in order for it to be harder for them to defend me?
Olivia, you apparently are a forerunner to all of the current trends in basketball because you're talking about your three-point shooting. I mean, we see Steph Curry do that now, and James Harden and so many other men's and women's athletes shooting threes from real deep. You were the stretch 4 before we started saying stretch 4. I mean, you should be looking for royalties. I mean,
right?
I need
the coin.
Yeah. What was your favorite moment, your favorite part about being a FAMU student athlete?
Besides just being involved in the school, I think it was just finishing my college career doing what I did. It was very rewarding for me, and to play against top competition and score in the double figures, like in the 20s plus, so the UNC, USC, Miami, playing them and being able to score was like all this work is paying off. And so getting my degree and being able to get it from Florida A&M University and just being able to wear that name on my chest and finish my career was rewarding because of all the work I had put in and all the sacrifices my mom had made in order to get me to where I was.
And I have to imagine quite the payoff for you because every time you make a move, which you had done a lot, there's a risk to it.
Yep.
And to see it pay off for you, I have to imagine gave you a sense of perseverance and just satisfaction or just relief that it's okay to make a change because that can be such a scary experience to switch schools. You're going to a new community, going to a new system, and now you hear commentary about how you're not tough enough to make it through adversity. I mean, you prospered.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. You did
you.
exceptionally well. The three-pointers, you second in school history and finishing with over 1,000 points in college too, from 3 different sources, but hey, those are your points. No one can take those away.
Right.
Did you get to take part in any postseason tournaments?
So
like NCAA or WNIT?
At FAMU, they always had the conference tournament.
Every conference does.
Yep, and we didn't get...
Even the Ivy League now.
Yep, we didn't get out of it. And my senior year, I didn't get to play in the conference tournament because in our last season game, I suffered an extremely severe concussion. But it was still good to see my team be there and to just be a part of it and just play. So no, I didn't, but it wasn't like a sad part for me to not be able to go to it. But yeah, just playing is what I always wanted to do, and being able to get to do it after high school on any level, I think is amazing for anyone.
And you spoke about a season-ending concussion, and you've had several of those since the first one at Benilde-St. Margaret's. How do you manage that, and how has that made you more cognizant of looking after yourself as an athlete, even though you're not playing as much as you did, just making sure that your health stays intact?
Right, listening to your body, making sure I'm eating right, I'm drinking water, I'm doing the things necessarily in order to feed my body and my brain what it needs. Unfortunately, with concussions, once you get one, they're easier to get and they come more frequently. And so I look at it as kind of a positive negative. I can teach my athletes and whoever I come across that this is serious. My mom always told me you only get one brain, and so you got to take care of it. And so just using all the things I've learned from injuries and other coaches to give to my players and give them the most that I can give.
And you touched on it, but I guess what's the toughest part about suffering a concussion outside of being more susceptible to them down the road?
Migraines. It's a lot easier to get migraines and headaches and just dealing with that. And also just doing exercises to help your neck and your back to keep it intact. And then sometimes with concussions, you'll have to keep doing eye strengthening exercises. And so it's just dealing with that and finding what works for you with your migraines or headaches and what triggers them so you can avoid them as much as possible.
Now, you got your degree in agribusiness?
Yes.
And after you graduated and finished up college career, were there any opportunities to play professionally, or were you looking at some other avenues for your career?
So there was, but because of the severity of my concussion, I was told I needed to literally take a break and sit down. And so, because I actually had a concussion specialist in Tallahassee, and my mom was just like, you need to literally let your brain recover. And so after not playing for so long, I knew I wanted to coach. And the earlier you get in coaching, the farther your career can go. And so once I had the opportunity to hop in, I just wanted to do that and help these players get to the stages that they want to play at.
So did you move back here?
So I moved back here for a little bit, and then I ended up moving to New York for a year.
And what did you do out there?
I worked at Basketball City, which is it's a large basketball establishment where they have NBA players come in and host camps. And then after that, I was working at a school called Urban Dove, which is essentially, it's a sports-based youth development school where they use sports to help students get on track. And all of our students came in over age and undercredited, so they were all 15 plus with 8 or less credits. And so we use sports and restorative justice to help the student get on track and to graduate with a high school diploma instead of taking time off and not finishing high school.
What did you make from that job and getting a chance to work with folks who maybe weren't as blessed as you were? Because you went to high school, college, and you graduated on time, and again, we said a model of a student athlete, and now you're using your skills to help these folks that maybe got a little off track and just needed a little push in the right direction.
Yeah, it was a very heartfelt experience and school year for me. I felt I got connected to a lot of the kids based on their stories who have had broken relationships with a lot of their family members and close friends. So I would call my mom all the time and just be like, I'm just reminding you, like, I love you. I'm so grateful for you, because to hear the stories that these kids went with, I would never wish it on anyone at any age. And so it just made me become a lot more patient and understanding, and just I wanted to give them everything I had in order to see them persevere and succeed and do all those things. So it was a good situation for me to help people, and that's what I think is one of my best traits, is helping the youth. And so it was just an amazing experience, and the chance that I got to connect with students and build authentic relationships that they still text me now.
And that's why you're coaching now, to help the youth. So what led you to come back to Minnesota, and how did you get your coaching career started?
Yep, I was ready to come back home. New York is a very hard place to live, and so it's kudos to anyone who lives there long term. I was just ready to come back to Minnesota, and I had initially applied for Osseo, and Bill Kwan reached out to me, who is the current athletic director, and he was the volleyball coach while I attended there. And after that, it just kind of went off, and I was the head varsity assistant and then the head junior varsity coach for the girls at Osseo.
And you'll be inheriting, or that's not the right word, you'll be in that same role at Orono. What did you learn from your year at Osseo that you think will help the Orono program out?
Yeah, so I think it's always just learning. I always go by, I don't know what I don't know. So asking questions and using my mentors was a big thing last year, and just developing players and seeing what style of play worked for me. And it just so happened I used it during the AAU season as well. And just kind of adapting to the new group and just bringing me, I'm a very passionate coach, and that comes from me being a passionate player. I keep it very real and to the point, and I feel as though kids respond well to that because I don't sugarcoat. I am extremely positive, but I like to tell you what's real and what's not, because I just feel like lying to kids or selling them false dreams or false hopes, it's not cool. And so that's something that I do. And because I'm on the younger end of being a coach, I feel like I have an easier time sometimes connecting with young females, also because I'm a young female. And
you
so
can
it's
still get some of the references that might go over my head.
Exactly. And then it's also, I wasn't removed from high school that long ago, and so I'm like, I get it. And so building relationships with them outside of basketball really helped how they play on the court as well.
It was Fred Rogers who once said, in reference to his work on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and children, that he believed children could spot a phony a mile away. And so the fact that you take that same approach to coaching, positive but upfront and honest, transparent, that's good, because I think a lot of kids would benefit from that, just understanding, what they need to do and knowing that you're going to be honest about your expectations, but you're going to cheer them along the way.
Exactly. And so that's just what I go by, is I'm here to support you, but I'm also here to help you become not only a better athlete, but a better person. Coach DeWitt said it, and now it's one of my coaching philosophies. If I only helped you become a better basketball player, I failed you as a coach. And so that's what I go by. And so helping you develop skills that will help you outside of the court is also a main goal of mine.
Now, you said you coached AAU for the first time, and you were sharing updates on your Twitter account, which is CoachLiv_ for anyone who wants to see what she's up to. And this woman's going to go places, I can tell you that much.
Thank you.
What was that experience like? I had Matt Pryor on a prior show today, and he had nothing but praise for how you coached AAU this season. So what do you make of that experience, and maybe what has changed, what has stayed the same from your days in AAU?
I absolutely loved coaching. I was blessed with an amazing group of girls, and also a great group of parents, and also a part of a great organization who is all about support, development, and we pride ourselves on that. And so it was really fun to have the whole group of girls just buy into what I wanted to do and where I saw the program going. And then once they bought in, they saw how fun it was, and we became a family. I played very up-tempo, like extreme up-tempo, pressing the whole entire game, fast pace, got up a lot of shots. I had a parent who had a stat app, and so we averaged over 55 shot attempts a game. So it was really fun. I don't think a lot has changed with AAU. I think it's different depending on where you're playing, the region you're playing in. When you go down south, and I feel like this is for any type of basketball, they let you get away with a lot more than
you were down in Atlanta recently?
Yep, we played after we were in Louisville, and then we went down to Atlanta, and they let a lot more things go in the South than they do what I've seen in the Midwest. Reffing is kind of what changes it, and what I've found playing and then coaching is girls in the South play a lot more physical than any other region that I've found. And so just preparing girls for that and keeping it completely honest that we got to lift weights, we got to prepare mentally for this and physically for it to be a tiring game.
Sounds like you would have fit right in.
Right? There was a few
times. What was
times,
I doing up here?
There was a few times I was itching to put on a jersey and jump back out there.
But I'm sure cooler heads prevailed for you. Right?
Yes, always.
You're a little old. I
Yes.
don't think you'd be eligible to play.
Not at all.
Now, you're wearing this She's a Bucket, and you've been promoting this Ball Better brand across your social media. So what exactly is Ball Better She's a Bucket? What is this about, and what do you hope to accomplish with this branding of yours?
Yeah, so my brand is called Ball Better Clothing, and it has been designed around kind of the philosophies I've lived by, which is you can always go harder, you can always ball better. And I took it more on as a lifestyle brand of whether you're in your work, your personal relationships, or any sport you play in, you can always do better than what you're doing, and you should never be okay with being average. And so the She's a Bucket was actually inspired by one of my Osseo players. Her name's Njcaa, and it was a slogan we just started saying during the season, and it caught on, and we would be watching a game and we'd be like, man, she's a bucket. And so I took that as I'm like, yep, she is. And so there's not a lot of brands that are just meant for strictly empowering female athletes. And it is for men as well, but the She's a Bucket was the originator. And so it's just showing girls like, yep, I'm a bucket, I do this, I can compete with whoever I want to compete with. And so it's there. I want to build it up for whoever wants it and just keep motivating. It's used to motivate athletes or anyone that they can always go harder and do better in whatever they're doing.
And you were talking before we started taping how you want to increase the opportunities and be a proponent of change and inspiration for women's basketball athletes. Why do you think is it important for you to be that proponent, be one of those agents of opportunity to the next generation of female athletes?
Yeah, I think in any sport, over time, female athletes still haven't earned the respect that they deserve. And it's just, I want to constantly motivate girls, young women, that you are good enough and you can compete with whoever you want to compete with, and just giving respect to the greats who have done this, like not even just basketball, but Serena Williams, Maya Moore, all these athletes.
The U.S. women's national team.
The women's U.S. national soccer team.
Back-to-back World Cup champs.
Exactly. Shout out to them. Just women athletes who, they ooze greatness, and it's like, you can be that if you really want to, and don't let anyone down talk you or say you can't because of your gender. It's bigger than just that, and just want to constantly empower young women, not only to become better athletes, but just to become the best woman they can be and to be a strong individual and to stand their ground.
Earlier in our conversation, you highlighted Kobe Bryant as your role model in basketball. On the women's side, who were some of the athletes that inspired you to take up the cause of promoting women's sports?
Yeah, Lisa Leslie, one of the greatest of all time.
I don't know about that. Maya's giving her a run.
Yes, she is. I was like, but yeah.
No, Lisa, she is one of the trailblazers.
Diana Taurasi, Candace Parker, Swing Cash, like all of these people.
You love them all.
Yes, I watched as much women and girls basketball as I did men. And it's just, I think it's a lot different to watch, but I enjoy watching it a lot more than men athletics.
Over time, I mean, I'll watch men's sports and women's sports, but I won't lie, I was a convert of sorts. I was more indifferent to the women's game early on, and when the Gopher women's team, the Golden Gophers, and Lindsay Whalen made that Final Four run, that was a big deal, but what led me to back women's sports more enthusiastically was Don Shelby, the WCCO TV anchor. He had done a campaign to get people out to see a women's game 10 years prior, and he was still a big supporter of women's sports. And being an aspiring broadcaster, to me, it's like, hey, if a big name guy can get behind a women's team, I guess I can too.
Right.
So I had to imagine it must have been cool for you, not only to go to state, but you could say I played on the same court as the WNBA champions.
Yes, and that's something I am extremely proud of is our links. I think they're amazing, and anytime I go somewhere, they're like, people bring up the Timberwolves. I'm like, no, it's the links. We're about the links. No shade to the Timberwolves, but it's just I love the way that they play, and they play such as a team. It's so fun, I feel, to watch them play and just see what they can do. And even now, as I'm out on the AAU circuit, girls are becoming more athletic. They're able to do things that guys can do. I saw a girl she was from the Bay Area AAU team. She grabbed the rim. Like, girls are able to do all those things, and I feel that they just deserve more respect when it comes to athletics.
And I think as the pro game is hung around a lot longer, there are more athletes to draw from. But it sounded like you soaked up every WNBA game you could.
Yes, I definitely try.
Do you still go to games?
When I can, yes.
Right.
In the free time that I have, I definitely try and see them play, or at least try and catch it on TV. I love watching basketball, and just because I feel like you can constantly learn and see new things, and I always want to support the WNBA and the women's NCAA.
Even NBA players like Draymond Green, I remember a few years ago, said, I learn more watching the women play. And it's cool that the opportunities have grown. I always thought it was kind of odd because the way AAU works, you can't always get to see the WNBA teams.
Right.
But let's not forget the Whitecaps either, the women's hockey team. So
right. There's a lot of ways to watch women's athletics.
And when you talked about the Timberwolves, I remember a few years ago, I was covering a section hockey game, and another guy who was there, I think doing PA announcing, said, yeah, it's slim pickings around here. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've covered the Lynx, so I've got to cover a couple of, at the time it was 2 finals championships, and since then it's been 4. And it may not be the ratings bonanza that the NBA finals are, or may not get all the publicity, but I don't regret being a part of that experience or getting champagne sprayed on me for a couple of those titles, and even getting to cover some athletes I once called in high school. Taylor Hill, Rachel Banham come to mind, and who knows how many more. You would not believe the number of schools that want me covering their games. If I ever quit, there will be a search party. Now, where do you see yourself professionally? Do you want to be a head coach at like high school, college, or what are some other avenues you would like to explore?
I know for sure I want to be a head coach. Right now, the coach that I'm underneath at Orono, Ryan Martin, he's an amazing coach, and he's giving me a ton of information, and he's really been a mentor to me since we've met. And I just know I need to learn, and with coaching, you have to earn your stripes, and then someone gives you a chance. I know I want to be on the college stage, and I know I will one day. And so it's just, until then, just keep evolving as a coach, keep gaining knowledge, keep doing the things possible so that I can get to where I want to be, which is on the college stage.
How cool would it be if you got a job at FAMU at someday?
Oh, that would be awesome, and I'm definitely not against that.
And Minnesota, maybe second or somewhere along that line?
Close.
It's your home state.
The snow is kind of, after this last winter, it's kind of pushing me away.
Although getting the chance to work with Lindsay Whalen
would be amazing, because she is.
I'm probably another role model of yours.
Yep, she definitely is, and definitely should be written down as one of the greatest WNBA women's basketball and just basketball players of all time.
I think she helped put women's basketball on the map.
Yep.
As far as what the women athletes can do, and I see it every year. Maybe you don't have superstars every year. Next season, Paige Beckers will be a senior, and I know she's gotten a lot of love, and deservedly so, but even the mid-majors, or in your case, an HBCU student, there's just so many great stories.
Yep.
Now, a couple more thoughts here. Who did you enjoy playing alongside with the most in high school or college, and who was your favorite player to go against?
That's a good question. I think my favorite player to play with was at FAMU, and that was with my teammate Khadijah Young. And that's just because we got along so well, and we were kind of a tandem duo, that was the best basketball relationship I had. And then playing against, that's a hard one.
You went against the Hopkins machine. You
Yep.
got to play against the De La Salle dynamic duo. Hill Murray, they're two D1s. So.
Yeah, I think for me it was just more of rivalries. Like for Benilde, when we played against De La Salle, I would always get amped for that game, and that was a super fun game. And then when I was
That's right, that's part of an annual rivalry.
Yep, and then at Osseo, anytime, like the 2 times I got to play against Maple Grove and then coach against them, like I got amped up for that too. So I think I get more excited for rivalries than I do playing against actual people, because it's like the history that comes behind it.
And what was your most exciting moment as a player, and what was your most embarrassing moment?
Oh, wow. I have a few exciting moments, but I think the top 2 would be winning the state championship, just because that's a memory I will always remember. And then I vividly remember my shot scoring my 1,000th point, and I actually have a picture of it. And
in high school?
In high school, yep. And in college, being named an All-American at the NJCAA level. So those are probably my top 3 most exciting. And then most embarrassing, probably every time I fell on the ground, which was a lot. So, but besides that, I mean...
You went after it though,
right?
So it wasn't for lack of effort.
No, not at all.
So apparently you just needed some face guards with all the falls you took.
Yes,
but hey, those are
maybe,
battle scars too.
Yes.
That you could. So if anyone doubts your grit, or if any of your Orono players give you a hard time, it's like, hey, I went on the floor
right.
and made a fool of myself, but I got back up and got buckets. And where can folks find that Ball Better clothing brand of yours if they want to take a look at it?
So we have a website, which is ballbetterclothing.com. And then we have a more variety on our Instagram, which is Ball Better Clothing. And then we also have a Facebook page, which is Ball Better Clothing. So any of those 3 avenues, you can find us, or you can email us for more information at ballbetterclothing@gmail.com.
Olivia, it's been a long time
Yes.
since we last crossed paths. It's funny how life brings us back, but I'm glad it did, because I had respect for you before.
Thank you.
Let's just say that went up tenfold.
Thank you.
With your effort to mentor the next generation, your effort to promote the women's game, and just trying to be a person that helps others. You have a highly admirable passion, ambition, and I'm excited to see whatever you end up doing, coaching, or if this Ball Better brand becomes a thing. You're going to be changing the world someday.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate that.
That's Olivia Antilla. Again, you can see her at Orono next winter. And again, check out the Ball Better clothing line if you want to help out with that mission. So that does it from here. If you'd like to be a guest on a future episode of Mic'd Up Sports, just contact us at tsbtelevision@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Mike Peden. Thanks for watching.
If you'd like to support TSB Television sports programming, check us out at patreon.com/TSB Television or paypal.me/TSB Television.